Our judicial system been weaponized, and it's really an American people see it. So I think this is very, fortunate that we now can at least have real conversation. And what they're doing to President Trump is unbelievable. We, as a member of Judiciary Committee, we have so many investigation looking on these issues and how what Department of Justice is doing. This is really dangerous, what's happening in our country. This is not in the democratic constitutional republic that should be happening. That's happening in third world countries, but not in America. So I'm glad to see that happening, and I think it's a good step forward.
Do you not believe the independent counsel is independent?
Well, listen, we had these independent counsels, but we've seen that what is happening, including with all of this report, they still come from the same system. And honestly, in a lot of ways, even special counsels the Department of Justice appoints are still, I would argue, probably in some way unconstitutional and probably not as independent because they still come from the same system, and the system became corrupt, I hate to tell you, and really not serving to protect people's rights and using very, very effectively politically.
So would this discredit, say, Special Counsel Weiss, who brought the charges against Hunter Biden, or Special Counsel Hur, who authored that report about Joe Biden's own handling of classified documents and called him a well-meaning man with a poor memory?
Well, listen, I would say that we need to really have a serious conversation about usage of special counsel. In last judiciary hearing, we actual Republicans brought up, some of my colleagues too, including me, the issue, how constitutional the special counsels are. And really, should be we using them? Because I've noticed what's happening. We have all this investigation going, so no one can ask questions. There is no transparency. Then statute of limitation expires, so no one is bringing charges, and there is no really consequences for doing some things that are pretty serious. So I think this has been very ineffective process. Congress needs to look how we can clarify that law and how the usage of special counsel. So I have really concerns with all of them, I'll be honest with you, and the results of the investigations and really lack of accountability in the Department of Justice.
It's interesting to hear that you see that it cuts both ways politically. We're here on the first day of the Republican National Convention. You must be excited. You finally got to this moment, and it hasn't come easily here based on what we've seen over the past couple of days. Donald Trump has made his way to town, and I'd like to get your impressions on what we're hearing, this narrative about unity, about lowering the temperature following an attempted assassination of a former president of the United States. Is the Republican Party capable of lowering the temperature this week?
Well, listen, I mean, it's an election year, so people definitely, have a lot of excitement. But I think, it's going to be excitement for the future of our country because we need to start governing. We have a lot of serious issues been punted for a very long time, and American people are tired. That's why the temperature is so hot on all of the sides, because the government haven't been governing and representing the people. And I think this is going to be a discussion how we can get our economy back on growth, how we can, build good economy for all Americans, deal with inflation, and deal with a lot of policy to have a brighter future for our children, because we're not doing it right now. And political rhetoric is difficult, and I think, unfortunately, it's been used in all of the sides to energize the base, and it's part of politics. But I hope we can have a constructive conversation. We do definitely need to investigate, see what's happened, because this is unbelievable what's happened really and how close, we had a situation that could have been very different convention right now, and it would be sad thing for our country and could destabilize country so much. So I hope we'll have more adults in the room to have this serious debates on issues. That's what we need to do.
Well, as we consider the events of this weekend and what is being done in response, there has been reporting that the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, as well as Jerry Nadler, the ranking member, were briefed by the FBI this morning. Has any of that information been shared with you as a member? What have you been told? Well,
we had some discussion, and we have, right now we need to make sure that we proceed properly. But I think it's in the interest of both parties, both sides, to look what's really happened. So I hope that my Democrat colleagues, and we had situation where, Jim Jordan and Nadler on situations of surveillance and warrant requirement, we actually came together, people on the right and the left. We had situation, we're dealing with some protection of privacy of Americans issues, so we can come together if we want. So maybe we can have a serious conversation, not to have a lot of grandstanding, even in Judiciary Committee. And this is probably the most grandstanding committee, but we can find a common ground, so I'm glad to see that. And I hope we can have a serious conversation, because it can cut both ways, not just in our way. I think Democrats should be concerned about that too, because that is a huge failure of security what just happened.
Well, should that conversation include security for members of Congress. We've been through this before, following Gabby Giffords, following Steve Scalise. Should members like yourself have a security detail?
We need to have a discussion. It is a pretty dangerous job, and how we really, deal. A lot of people don't realize that generally only a few members in Congress have any security, and we right now in a very polarized environments, and how we can deal with that. I think this is we need to have, because I mean it's a great one, a huge responsibility. But in this environment, like I'm probably one of the few members of Congress that does in-person town halls. A lot of my colleagues are actually very concerned to do that for that reason, because you put your life in danger by doing that, but we still have to be able to communicate with our constituents, and we have to be able to get out, otherwise we cannot represent them well. So I think it's a conversation to have.
Well, as you're doing that communication and thinking about what your constituents want to see from the Republican Party, the kind of policy conversations that will be happening at the RNC this week, you talk about things like fighting inflation. What is the actual plan to do so, when many economists we speak with here at Bloomberg suggest that some of the Trump policies he is suggesting, like increasing tariffs, would only be further inflationary? So what exactly is the proper plan?
Well, I think, President Trump is, he wants to grow the economy, and he wants to make sure that we continue tax cuts. But we definitely need to look on the spending side. And this is a conversation I have with his team members on spending side, how we can reform some of the big ticket items like healthcare. If we want to really re-energize the economy, decrease debt load, and save a lot of programs that we promised to Americans, including like Medicare and Medicaid. Let's look how much there is abuse in the system. Trillions of dollars of issues that actually President Trump and Obama agreed on. Let's have, and that's what the conversation we need to have, and have a plan. And I think this is something we've been working to try to have, because a lot of time in the political world, you have very short window where things can happen right after the election. So you need to have a plan, and good plan you need to wait and have a real. So that's what we want to do, how we can deal with our dependency on China, our supply chain, energy policy, our spending, which big part is healthcare, and dependency on China. And really is with driving the biggest driver on inflation right now is that we have to deal. And I think he has a lot of good people with good policy ideas. And I think before, my hopes we're going to win, and my hopes we can deliver that next Congress with President Trump.
You're the only Ukrainian American serving in Congress. Will we hear about Ukraine at this convention? What will be the party's posture on this war?
Well, I think this is a very complicated issue. I think, this convention is going to talk about big issues like border, domestic issues, but foreign policy issues are important, and President Trump doesn't want to have wars. President Trump wants Europeans to step up, and he probably doesn't get enough credit in a lot of international issues, that he actually did a lot of things to deter Russia from further aggression. So I don't think that is not the main topic on the, in the mind of Americans right now, but it is a very important topic, and we have to be figuring it out. We cannot have never-ending wars. We need to learn from $2 trillion, that we spend in Afghanistan.
Do you believe he can end the war on day one, like he says?
Listen, this is a lot of political things, that you say, but he will definitely will do whatever he can to really try to figure out how to resolve this situation, because this has become a very, very, very difficult and very, very bloody war, and millions of lives are going to be destroyed already.
So do you think that Ukraine can count on a future Trump administration to continue the support the U.S. has provided up to this point in the war?
From my perspective, I think Biden administration failed in Ukraine, deterred the war, they slow-walked the aid. So I think President Trump will be much stronger on these issues, and I think he'll be willing to work with all of the parts. I cannot talk on his behalf, but I'll know that, a lot of things people don't realize is also Congress is involved in these issues. Actually, power of the person and war power should be in Congress anyway. And I think President Trump been working and talking to a lot of members of Congress on this issue too. So there is a political rhetorics, and there is also real, discussions. And I think these real discussions will be much better for Ukraine than they are right now.
Are we going to get a running mate announcement today?
I hope so, and I'm very excited about that.
Where are you in the office pool?
So listen, they're all lucky that I cannot be one. Otherwise, they will be all in trouble, But I will be a great ally to the administration, because I truly believe we cannot govern through executive orders. Congress needs to start doing is, job. Actually, Chevron doctrine, the Supreme Court ruling Chevron doctrine showed us we are not doing our job. And I think we need to, this is instability for the country to change policies with each administration. We need to discuss, deliberate, and deliver on some of the key policies that they have long-term effect for economy, for businesses, and predictability. That is very important that our businesses, even sometimes maybe they don't like our policies, but at least they can react on them, not like retroactively do them or change them 3 times a year. That's not very good for the country.